Woo-wee! It just keeps getting crazier and crazier. You make my job really easy. Those of you out there creating some insane news, we're going to talk more about consciousness, upcoming events, why they aren't happening, going into consciousness to realize we're making it happen. And then the old world that is still stuck in the old beliefs that's making that happen. I've got all kinds of proof, scientific, spiritual, and consciousness are merging as one thing. If you're interested in hearing what JD Vance said, and you haven't heard this yet, this is exactly what I'm talking about that's going to come out more and more. And those of you who are progressing into the consciousness will connect the dots and understand how much in control you are and how you can step out of the fear now and realize we're going into something really amazing. Let's talk about consciousness and all those evil things out there. What are they? I'm going to talk about that too. Let's go. Welcome to Landria, Onkka on YouTube, here to help you break through fear and live an amazing life. You know, I was talking more about the predictions, what's coming up, Edgar Cayce, Dolores Cannon, love them. However, they are in alignment with what's going on right now. Predictions of realities that can be, that exist, warnings that they will exist if we don't give up that old world. So the warnings that they give, the predictions that Edgar Cayce gave, were of an old low frequency thinking. And he projected that into the future and said, if you do not change this, because he said the mind is a builder, it's all coming from your thoughts. He said that, right? If you do not change it, your current thoughts of the old world, the low frequency, will see them come into our physical world. And we're going to talk about that today. If you didn't see my last video, you need to go in there and see Federico Faggin, who was a materialist, who I'm going to talk about today also, who switched over to knowing that we and all things are consciousness and that all of it you are connected to and creating. We're going to start creating a future, and it's happening now. Events are going to show up on the dates we thought. I don't know. We're a few days away from the Chris Bledsoe visit from the White Lady. I don't know if it's going to happen, but let's put it this way. The events we're going to talk about today are happening. When they happen, we're controlling that, and it has to do with what you believe. It's so important. Stick with me because we're going to go into some very interesting subjects right now and take you into that new space. It might blow your mind because we've never thought like this. This is the new era, the golden era. So what about JD Vance, Vice President of the United States? I actually thought he might be a cool guy. I don't know. I've never really watched the news much enough to know, but I thought, if anything happens to the president, I think we might be in okay hands. I don't know, but guess what? He just went on the Benny show. I accidentally said Benny Hill show. I had to edit that out. I'm showing my age. But we should be watching the Benny Hill show, Benny show, and said it. He doesn't think they're aliens. He thinks they're demons. He calls them celestial beings that actively wish us harm. Now he's talking about the UFO thing. You know, the UAPs, the UFO, what are they? And that was his answer. He called them celestial beings that actively wish us harm. Would that be celestial or just beings? I'm thinking a celestial being wouldn't wish us harm. Now, here we go again. And we're going to talk about how there's limitless realities and that his is one of them. But celestial beings don't wish us harm. The ones that he's creating with his consciousness, they do. Now, I just want you to know, it doesn't come into reality unless you place your attention on it. This is science. These are experiments. The observation, the observer effect, if you watch that last video, I talked about this. The observer effect is it doesn't become a particle, that which appears in the 3D physical world without observation and the thought behind the observation, whether I think this is good or bad or evil, is what determines that final outcome. Christ couldn't heal everyone. The person who was in this state of illness, had to believe it. It was actually their co-creation that determined that turning point. So now on the surface, this statement that he made sounds like a political or religious statement. But today we're going to look at it through the lens of quantum information theory, because JD Vance isn't just talking about UFOs, he's describing a frequency lock. He is showing us exactly how the old world consciousness renders a high dimensional reality into a narrative of fear. Now, those of you who have not seen this article, I want to pull this up for you, and I'm going to read it because you deserve to get the actual information quotes. So this is from Coast to Coast AM, which, by the way, I was on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. He interviewed me. He's an amazing guy. Vice President JD Vance recently weighed in on the topic of UFOs, claiming their origins go beyond our physical universe. Yes, they do. We know they're not just physical things anymore, that they can transform into orbs, all kinds of things. We still don't know what they are, but we're understanding a little bit more about this. According to Vance, the unidentified objects in question have a more spiritual, sinister explanation. This is the cray-cray part. I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons. Anyway, that's a longer discussion. I think that sort of said it all, don't you think? He said on a recent episode of the Benny Show podcast, when asked to elaborate, Vance noted that throughout history, humanity has struggled to categorize these encounters. Yeah, we have. We just really don't know what they are until they land and tell us, right? So far, that hasn't happened. Celestial beings who fly around, who do weird things to people, I think that's the desire. To describe everything as celestial, everything is otherworldly, to describe it as aliens, he explained. I don't know what he's talking about. Vance then framed the phenomena of UFOs within his Christian faith. Oh, now we're getting into some strange turf. This faith says it's this way. This is where we get in trouble. There's no one way. He's right for him and whoever believes that. He's labeling them as covert manifestations of Satan. If Source created everything, then didn't Source create Satan? There's a purpose for that. There's a purpose for controversy, and there's a purpose for low frequencies who are choosing it and testing the rest of us. So remember, they are our best teachers. I think that one of the devil's great tricks is to convince people he never existed. Well, he doesn't for me. Just low frequencies, and that can take any form. There's a lot of those Satans walking around. It's just not one thing. It's just a low frequency. The vice president also stated, I'm more curious than anybody. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. No, you're not. Not thinking that way, you aren't. This idea is certainly not foreign to coast listeners who have heard many guests speculate that aliens might actually be interdimensional beings. Do you agree with these claims? Yeah? Well, here's what I have to say about that. Today I'm going to give you the facts that bridge the gap between Federico Faggin's math, the Hopi Blue Star, supposedly the comet people are saying was the Hopi Blue Star. That's not a star, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And we're going to prove why. Them being evil is an outdated software program, and how you can upgrade your own observer status today. Buckle up. Let's look at the facts. On March 27th, this is just recent, 2026, the vice president sat down and admitted he's obsessed with the UFO files, even though he hasn't seen them yet. Sure, JD. But his conclusion, quote, I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons. So he's already coming in with a really bad attitude. Why? Maybe the ones that we're hearing about are not the nicer ones, but I'll be honest with you. My opinion, why should they be nice to us? We don't treat each other well, and we certainly don't treat anything that comes into our atmosphere very well. Why would they care or like us? They're probably thinking we're a parasite. And that would not be too far from the truth. He cited the devil's great trick and framed the entire phenomenon as a moral struggle of good versus evil. There's no battle going on. There's no battle. They're just choices. And the battle is when you want something or someone to be different, right? I'm fascinated by people's behavior. Fascinated, aren't you? So this is the old world duality. Let's talk about that. The classic old world trap. It's the belief that the universe is a battlefield. And it is a game, and it's set up that way. Well, you could choose that and be the victor. What does that get us? Because that very thing you're battling is one thing. That's the consciousness we're going into. That thing you battle is you. Do you remember Star Wars when Luke Skywalker went into the cave and Yoda said, "Don't go in there. It's dangerous." Well, he did it anyways, of course. Youth. So he goes in there and he runs into Darth Vader and he whacked Darth's head off with a sword. No, his lightsaber. Oops, his lightsaber. And Darth's head rolled off and the mask on his face dissolved. And the head in the helmet was Luke's. He was looking at himself. Very, very wise stuff back then. That's how it works, my friend. Don't be whacking somebody's head off with a lightsaber. So here's the secret in 2026. We know that reality is rendered, not discovered. What does that mean? Rendered, not discovered. It's not something that exists that we discover. We're creating it. We render it. We focus on it and therefore it exists. That's what rendered means. Okay, versus like, okay, we're focusing on it, creating it. No, we're rendering something that is a possibility that exists in all times. Past, present, futures exist simultaneously. When you approach a quantum phenomenon with the frequency of the soldier or the judge, your consciousness must collapse the wave function into a threat. Only a judge, right? There's a threat. Somebody has to be judged, right, wrong. Soldier, there's something to be battled. That's separation. You're going to have to step back from that if you want to join in the highest frequency. It's still your choice. You can hang out there for a while if you like that. Some people they're addicted to conflict. They're addicted to self-sabotage. Okay, when you're ready to get out of that, come on over. We're all equal co-creators, so there's nobody above you. Vance isn't seeing an objective truth. He's seeing a quantum mirror. If you believe in the devil, the universe will provide the pixels to prove you right. But this isn't the whole story. JD Vance's statement represents the old world frequency. There's a devil and good people and battles, and we have to take out anybody that doesn't agree with us. Who are you taking out? You're chopping off your hand and your arm of the body of the whole. It's rooted in the adversarial model, the belief that anything we don't understand must be a threat, a demon or evil. They're out there, they're demons. Well, sure, they have their own frequencies, but if they were truly demons, they would have wiped us out by now. They don't need us. We're a detriment to the universe and our own planet. But there are those of us who are rising above that and sending our light and love to the old world. The pivot, evil is simply a low frequency interpretation of a higher dimensional reality. It sees that as something evil. It sees this not as a teaching, but something that needs to be destroyed, an enemy. It's rooted in the material world. Here's science. Federico Faggin's work, which I described in my last video of how this materialist, and I'll go through it here with you. This materialist turned into a spiritual person with all of his science. He developed the microchip. This is a serious dude. Yeah, our computers, our phones, thanks to him. He says everything's consciousness, and the brain is only an interpreter of that. It doesn't control or do anything. Consciousness is beyond the body, and that we're just creating with our beliefs, and that there's nothing here that has to get to here. If consciousness creates reality, then believing in evil aliens renders that experience for the observer. Isn't this interesting? I love this. You're effectively frequency locking yourself into a reality of fear because you believe it. You've been told it. I'm a Christian. Well, I guess I'm a Christian. I don't like to label anything. I don't believe any of that. So what's the next big idea? That these beings, whether you call them UAP, NHI, non-human, or angels, act as a quantum mirror. Have you noticed they're changing shape now that now we see more orbs, right? Now we don't see just the regular saucers. What is that? They're transforming according to our thoughts and realities and beliefs. We're actually controlling that. Yes, we'll go into that some other time. If you approach the phenomenon with the frequency of a soldier or politician like Vance, you see a threat, right? A politician now, not just a judge. If you approach it with the frequency of an observer, that's the observer secret, the observer effect. You see a reflection of universal consciousness. You don't judge it. It is not evil. It is not this. We have no labels. There's no label or separation. There's another form of the one source of all things. Let's go beyond the demon narrative. JD Vance called the phenomenon evil. But is he seeing a threat or is he just seeing his own reflection? We're talking about the demon narrative today. It is the final gasp of the old world frequency and how to move into the new world. They are just you in another form. They are you in another form. It's tough because we are individuals that are connected and are the one expressing itself as an individual. You are that in another form and vice versa. You are that. Let's talk about Federico Faggin and the rendering mechanism. This brings us to that man who literally invented the microprocessor, Federico Faggin. I think in my last video, I was calling him Federico. He spent the last few years proving that consciousness is fundamental. I'm pretty sure he's still alive. Very smart guy. His CTP model, consciousness transform physics, tells us that what we see as matter is just a symbol. It's just a symbol. Just like the icons on your computer screen, if you click on an icon that looks like a monster, it doesn't mean there's a monster inside your hard drive. It means the software is displaying a monster to you. Those who you want to manifest things, this is the critical key, right? Really listen to this. This man is sharing some serious stuff. It's not the monster. You're creating the monster. And you believe it, just like JD Vance believes they're demons because of my religion, my faith. So is your faith the ultimate answer to everything? He believes it is. I believe his is right. He creates that, and I create my own, and so do you. So just because somebody else creates something else doesn't mean yours is less real. Oh no, let's come down to reality. What's reality? Whatever you're choosing. So Faggin says, and I quote, matter is a byproduct of consciousness. Matter is a byproduct of consciousness. There's nobody between you and the matter. The consciousness permeates everything, and you are it. So when you, as the individual, direct your focus, it exists. And so sometimes things have to catch up and align, so it doesn't always act immediately. We'd have blown ourselves up by now every time we hated somebody. I wish you were dead, right? Now, so there is a delayed reaction because our thoughts, so I didn't mean that, and we go back and forth. So as soon as you start to focus primarily on something, you truly feel it in your heart, and you come from love especially, you can do all of that on a low frequency. That's what's happening right now in our world. They believe it. They want it. They don't question their manifesting capabilities, and they're laser focused on it. But we have to do it on a high frequency. So the father of microprocessor, he designed the world's first commercial microprocessor and the silicon gate technology that made modern computers possible. And this guy believes in consciousness and that we create everything. It is a hologram. In every little molecule exists the whole. That's another video. He was a hardcore materialist. This is the great part. I don't know if maybe some of you've been through this. I know I have. When you have that experience, for most of his career, he believed the brain was just a biological computer and that consciousness was a byproduct of neural complexity. Scientist turns into investigator. He founded the Faggin Foundation specifically to apply rigorous scientific methods to the study of consciousness, bridging the gap between physics and spirituality. Faggin is a unique figure because he doesn't just approach consciousness from a philosophical perspective. He approaches it as the world's leading expert on information processing. He's not just coming up with theories, he's testing this. And as a man who co-invented the first microprocessor, the Intel 4004, he spent decades trying to build intelligence into the silicon. You guys are worried about AI? He's saying it can't happen. It will never have consciousness. It was his failure to find a path to true awareness in computers that eventually led him to the conclusion that consciousness is not a result of complexity, but a fundamental property of the universe. There's no formula that'll create it. It's just the universe. It's all things, all that you see and no thing. So what changed his mind? Well, in the late 1980s, while at the peak of his career and financial success, computers, brain, materialistic, Faggin had a spontaneous mystical experience during a family vacation. A sudden burst of light emerging from his chest, where he felt an overwhelming sense of love. We've heard this before, and a direct first-person knowledge that he was not his body. Have you experienced that? I have. You can't even explain it. He didn't dismiss this as a hallucination. He was wide awake. Instead, he treated it as data. He realized that this state of knowing was more real than the physical objects around him. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So now he has a framework called quantum information panpsychism. Quantum fields are conscious. Matter is a symbol. The permissive brain, instead of creating consciousness, he believes the brain is the translator. It allows universal consciousness to manifest in a specific, localized physical form. He proves mathematically that human creativity and intuition are non-algorithmic. Since computers are 100% algorithmic, they can never be truly conscious. Do you know how powerful we are? I'm going to quote him. Consciousness and free will are fundamental and exist from the beginning. Rather than emerging with the physical brain, it is the brain that emerges from the conscious fields. Isn't that beautiful? This was created from the conscious fields. Therefore, it and us are one, just different expressions, and therefore, we hold that power. It functions, we function, and we are given free will. He makes it clear. So let's talk about the prophecy. We're talking about Three-Eye Atlas, the Blue Star Kachina, all this stuff's showing up, right? These are gateways. I say they're just portals. So those of you saying, yep, another date, nothing happened. I said, yeah, I'm going to tell you. Where's the 3 days of darkness? I mean, that's supposed to all happen. Now, I do think there are going to be certain events coming up, but our consciousness is in control. So again, if you're waiting for it to happen, it won't. We are the event. We have to make it happen. We have to know what's happening. If enough of us believe and know, but instead, more, especially spiritual people, are waiting for it to happen. Let's watch the dates and sit back. You're not creating. So the dates are irrelevant. It's the events. And all of these things are lining up for us. They're energy fields, and they're assisting in many ways. So this isn't just happening in Washington, it's happening in the sky. In late 2025, we discovered the interstellar object Three-Eye Atlas. Shout out to my friend, the captain, who's really into this stuff. NASA calls it a comet. I don't know, it looked a little odd, don't you think? I'm not sure it was a comet. It didn't behave like a comet. The Hopi elders, I don't know if they'd call it Blue Star Kachina. Some people are saying that. I don't believe it is. But you could say it's another sign. Absolutely. What is that? What was it? It went by and it was pretty mystical. I think it was an energy field that's waking us up. Another signs that there are other things out there beyond our imagination. The prophecy says that when the blue star appears, it is the final warning before the great purification. I do believe we're getting close to that. But purification doesn't mean destruction. It means frequency alignment. Now, I have to tell you something. Somebody told me, a few people have told me that there's another channel that talks a lot like me, but this other person's a remote viewer. So I went over there and looked. And the remote viewing absolutely was very frightening. Now, I have to tell you something. When somebody shares that, they're sharing, even if they're a remote viewer, I don't care how good they are, they're still only showing one reality. And if that's planted in your head and you think that's what's going to happen, according to Faggin, he will bring it into your reality. Just like Vance will create Satan. For him, it exists, and he may experience that. It might show up in his bedroom one night. That's how this works. Be careful with that. Another thing I want to tell you about remote viewers, and we're going to do more, we're going to talk more about that, because that's real stuff. You have these abilities. The issue with that is, and this is why remote viewers, the real deal out of DC that's been trained, you know, all the big dudes, stopped trying to see the future because they noticed that the remote viewers' thoughts and beliefs, and this comes back to what Faggin says, you create it through your beliefs. So if I believe something, maybe I don't like the government and I think this and that's going to turn into whatever. You know, we've heard, you know, Bashar talk about predictions and stuff. Yeah, that's an absolute. That could be. I'm not visualizing that we're going to go into something worse. If you remote view, this is why they stopped these programs of remote viewing the future, although I'm sure somebody's doing it somewhere, is because the ego and the beliefs and thoughts of the remote viewer affected what they saw. So if I believe that this is bad and that they are going to do this, I can see that reality. Does this make you feel better? It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But if I see it because I have a belief and I believe this is the inevitable outcome, my ego and beliefs will affect the reality that I see. Pretty cool, huh? So now maybe you said, well, okay, I'm going to give up tarot and astrology and channeling, but remote viewing, that's real. Yeah, sure it is. They're seeing a reality that exists. There's 5 billion other ones. Which one do you want to choose? It's your focus that's going to contribute to that and a collective, right? So the Hopi tell us that humanity lived through 3 previous worlds that were destroyed because they lost their balance. They became separate from the stars. When JD Vance calls these beings demons, he's choosing separation. Be careful of that. He's speaking from the 4th world, and he doesn't mind saying it so that he can influence other people with this, right? Wow, if the vice president, a Christian, said that, it must be true, and there's some people who will believe that. He's no more powerful than you. But the 5th world, the one we're entering into, requires the frequency of unity. You cannot enter without unity. Hey, listen, you can have your opinion. You know what? What are your intentions? That's what it comes down to. We have been breaking up relationships here like crazy. My friends and I have just talked and said, we're starting to speak up and say certain things. It might be hurtful for other people. Those aren't our intentions. What are your intentions? All right? No, we never want to harm another person or hurt their feelings. What are your intentions? You want the best for others, but you also have to protect your energy field, because if they're making lower choices, do you want to be around it? Sometimes the best thing you can do is allow the baby to fall a few times and pull him or herself up so that they can figure it out. The 5th world requires the frequency of unity. So how do you avoid the demon frequency? The solution is shifting your observer status. How do you avoid the demon frequency? My garbanzo beans are getting ready. So first you have to understand that fear is a low bandwidth signal, right? We know that. It doesn't feel good. It's a thought and a story about something that you don't want to happen, something that has happened, and you're still running the story. You're probably sitting there in your living room and you're still running the story about my mommy and daddy, or, the world is evil and whatever. And of course, I have those feelings too. It's like the world, it's pretty nasty. Doesn't feel good, but there is sadness. And then there's fear. Fear is the ego wants to protect itself and its situation. It says, this has to change for me to be happy. All right. So it's a low bandwidth signal. As soon as you go out of that and it is done, I know I can do anything. The anything shows up. The health, the wealth, all of it shows up. We're going to the consciousness. We are the consciousness. It's all your thoughts, all of it. So when you feel fear about the future, about aliens, about them, your bandwidth drops. Them, right, wrong. You lose the ability to see the semantics, the meaning of the shift. You only see the syntax, the scary symbols, the monster there, right? It's not real. It's just the syntax in the computer. How do we neutralize the mirror, right? How do we end that mirror, that reflection that we don't like? We're in charge of that. Start observing your reaction to the news. When you hear a politician or a religious leader speak from fear, say to yourself, that is a 3D icon. I choose the 5D reality. And they could have all kinds of beautiful messages, and then they load you up with something really nasty. Here's the future. I saw it. And you can't get that out of your energy field, especially if they're primarily giving really nice messages and you like that person. That ego stepped in. It became an authority now. I saw this, so it must be true. Instead of saying, that's one reality. We can go over here. Let's go over here. Second, focus on your somatic frequency. That buzzing in your vagus nerve, that's right back here. I haven't had that. I don't know. I went through this stuff years ago. That 3 a.m. electrical wake-up call, that is your biology trying to tune into 39 hertz galactic frequency. Don't label it as evil. Label it as the event is me. Are we going into something now? The event is me. Because even if we go into certain things, because it's been chosen by other people that are in a different dimension, a different frequency, you still get to react the way you choose within it. And it doesn't have to be fearful. It's going to test you. She said, well, what do I do if they're doing it? That's the whole point. What are you going to do? Are you going to go into fear? That's your test. You can't get tested if there isn't this crazy stuff going on. So let's talk about the 2026 truth. The next big idea is this. We're moving from a world of belief into a world of knowing. It's so weird that this is coming up because my book, I keep telling you, the last chapter is the knowing. I don't know where that came from. It was a download. I wrote, what's the knowing? I explain it in the book in detail. JD Vance believes in demons. Federico Faggin knows that consciousness is the creator. The aliens aren't coming to save us. They aren't coming to destroy us. We have free will. We're in charge of that. That's the whole point of planet Earth, is to play this out. They are here as a frequency test. They want us to be a part. They want to interact. They're our neighbors. We're like little kids with matches, right? They're showing us exactly where our consciousness is. If you see a demon, you have work to do on your own mirror. If you see a stellar relative, you are ready for the fifth world. Yeah. So the event isn't a landing on the White House lawn. The event is you finally realizing that you are the one rendering the sky, rendering, creating. It's already there. Your view brings it into the event, the solid thing, the relationship, the healing. It is already there. You focus on it, you see it, you know it, and it becomes the world's essence. Light and love knows itself through self-reflection. Don't you love that? I'm going to say that again. The world's essence, light and love, knows itself through self-reflection. That's Satan, those battles, those demons, those right and wrong. It's knowing itself through self-reflection. And through that, it's making choices as the individuals. Yes, not true individuals. The individual adventurers, you're one of them. Make your highest choice and watch what happens in your life. I hope that you will subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. That really helps me a lot. Click the bell if you want to be reminded of all my videos coming out, because we're going to dig deeper, because we've gone into a whole new world now. Have you noticed? It's not law of attraction. It's not manifesting. It's like we are. I am that. I am. And now we're going to work on how do we work with this. This Federico Faggin, I just discovered him this week, and I got to tell you, he's blowing my mind. I didn't even know who the guy was. Major dude, okay? If he believes it and he had an experience, we're going to hear more and more of that. Those of you who would like to go into the One Conscious Creator, the Conscious Creator Vault, go to landriaonkka.com, free inspiration, that's down in there. You'll go to my email list and you can choose to go into the monthly membership. It's pretty cool. It describes exactly what it is. I have products down there. Non-plastic, clean, non-planet invasive, non-toxic. Your hair, your shampoo, whatever you put on your skin, what you clean your house with, it should not come in plastic. Start making those higher decisions. We must do this if we want to participate. If not, then you won't. Just like JD Vance. Maybe someday he'll realize it's just not true. Maybe it's going to take an event for him, like Federico Faggin had his experience. That's when you know, the knowing. You are whole and perfect, strong and powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. Blessings to you, my friend. Namaste.